Welcome to the Millennial Rant, a podcast about whatever's bothering me today. With topics ranging from politics to pop culture, there's a rant to cover everyone. For more Millennial Rant content, you can join me on the web at millennialrant.com. I talked last week about capitalism versus consumerism and how nobody really knows what capitalism is, and so they equate it to consumerism because they haven't actually looked into it, and they're just regurgitating the socialist propaganda that has been fed to them because these socialist capitalist conglomerate organizations want to be able to stay in power and actually say all of that per se, but that was the gist of what I was talking about. So I figured today would be a good idea to talk about the other fly in the ointment that is this consumerism society that we live in, and that being equity versus equality. So let's just get down to it. Equity is a socialist buzzword, the same way capitalism has become a socialist buzzword because people want to destroy capitalism to go to socialism so that you think that what you're doing is creating a more equitable society for everybody. Because equity is a lazy man's success story. Equity means equality of outcome, where equality means equality of opportunity. So what we want is not the same output. If it's the same output, there's nothing new or novel or interesting or worth consuming. It's just all of the same garbage. Whereas equality of opportunity means that you have the chance to break into a capitalist society and make a name for yourself, to grow beyond your current circumstances. Let me put this in perspective. People are saying equity because they are saying, well, everybody should be able to have the same opportunities in education. Why? Why should everybody be able to have the same opportunities in education? If everybody had the same opportunities in education, then every university would be the worst possible university you could ever think of. Not Harvard, not Yale, although it wouldn't be a quality education. It would be the public school system. And I think we can all agree that that's broken. And so, instead of saying equality of outcome, which is what we currently have in the public school system, what we need to be saying is equality of opportunity. How do we get equality of opportunity in the school system? We do it through school choice. I can't remember. I think it was a YouTube video. And it was this girl arguing about the public school system, about how we couldn't have school choice. We just needed to pour more money into the schools as they were because these students don't have the opportunity to travel out of their current school district into a better school district. They can't move there because they can't afford it. They can't travel there because for whatever reason. And that's like, okay, so what you're saying is you want school choice. You just want to choose your school because it should get more money? But pouring money into anything has never made anything better. I'm reminded of the story in the Bible of the woman with the blood disease. She literally spent her entire fortune going from doctor to doctor asking for a cure, and not one of them could cure her because it wasn't a money issue. It was a knowledge issue or a quality of medication issue. It had nothing to do with money. Pouring more money into these broken schools isn't going to do anything. It's just going to reinforce what's already broken. 90% of it goes to the administration anyway. You want 90% of, an extra 10% to go to the administration? What difference would it make? Equality of opportunity would be to give kids the opportunity to go to a place where they could get an actual education, but they have to want to get an education. I recently had a job interview at a university, and one of the questions that they asked me was, how was I going to keep the kids engaged in what I was teaching, especially for those topics that might be boring? I straight up said, I can and will do the best that I can to make it interesting. There's all sorts of, different directions that and that you can go to talk about it, but ultimately it's not my responsibility to entertain these kids. It's my responsibility to educate them. And if they don't want to be educated, there's really not much I can do. They paid $20,000 a year to go to this school. If that's not motivation enough, I got nothing. But it's become this whole idea that everything has to be catered to the kids. You have to draw them in and give them a reason to want to do. Sometimes you just got to do stuff you don't want to, which means sometimes you got to work. Sometimes you got to work hard. Whether you're working hard at your education, whether you're working hard at your crappy job, whether you're working hard to learn a new skill, sometimes you just have to work. And there is no equality of outcome when people genuinely work hard to do something, to learn something. What you're saying is you want everybody on the same level. Well, if the people who are at the bottom don't want to do what it takes to get to the top, then the only way you can level out is by dragging the people at the top down to the bottom. It's like we want to give toilet paper to everybody, but Charmin is expensive, and so we take all of the toilet paper companies, and instead of, putting it all into mass producing Charmin so everybody can have Charmin for free, we mass produce that crappy one-ply toilet paper everybody hates, and you get that for free. And don't we already have that when we go to a store like Walmart or whatever, and they have that crappy toilet paper and nobody wants to use it because it's crappy? That's equality of outcome, okay? Do you have another example? I'm an author, okay? I have books that have been published traditionally. I have books that I am publishing, on my own. I've talked about this before. Equality of outcome is everybody publishing on Kindle and becoming a bestseller because everybody's required to buy every new book that comes onto Kindle. I can tell you who wins and who loses in that scenario because I don't want to read every book that's ever been published on the Kindle. And it's not necessarily because they're bad. A lot of them are, but not every book. It's just because I'm not interested in all of the topics or the genres that are regularly published. I want to be able to choose the things that I want to choose to read. And I want to be able to choose the things that I want to choose to write. So equality of opportunity is that KDP is an open platform and anybody can publish on KDP, whether it's a good book or a crappy book, whether it is a bestseller or it never sells anything. And trust me, I know about never selling anything on KDP. But it's the opportunity to succeed that's most important. And that's what didn't exist when we had only traditional publishing. Amazon did a really great thing for the publishing world when it opened up publishing to the layman. Again, you get a lot of dregs, but there's a lot of cream too. People don't realize how much really good fiction and nonfiction is on Kindle that was self-published. And not just Kindle, but real brick and mortar books too. If you're interested at all in publishing, KDP has come a long way. There are other options too, like Ingram Spark. Their platform isn't as user-friendly, so I don't usually use them, but it's available, and so is Barnes and Noble Press. That's real capitalism, right? Taking something and making it more widely available to people, that drives down the cost for people like me who are putting our work out there because there's competition. I can choose to go to Ingram Spark. I can choose to go to Barnes and Noble. I can choose to go to Amazon. And because they know that those choices are available, they're going to do whatever it is that they can to make sure that I choose them. If Ingram Spark gets a better, more user-friendly interface, I will definitely transition over there. As it is right now, I struggle. I might still use it, but I struggle. I also digress. Instead of crying, give me what everyone else has because I want it, why not take a step back and look at the life that you're living to see if, you're doing the things that you need to do to be able to get the things that you want. As for those people who are lucky enough to be born into advantageous, circumstances, so what? If you look at people who are generationally wealthy and have such a problem with it because you're not, then do what it takes to be wealthy so that your children will be generationally wealthy. The money of the wealthy is not owed to you just because some of them might have inherited it as opposed to working hard for it. There are a ton of studies that show that people who are poor, who win the lottery, burn through their money so fast. They burn through it, and they're left in even more debt than they were already in before they won the lottery. And it's because what we're doing when we're poor, and I include myself in that category because I straight up do this, is we put ourselves into unnecessary debt so that we can have what everybody else has, because that's the consumer culture we live in. That's the whole idea of equality of outcome. You don't have to make the money, you just have to borrow it. Well, what they don't tell you is that you have to pay it back, and often with interest. This idea of credit, of if you can't afford it, just charge it, and then you can afford it. Well, no, you can't. I can't. And yet, this is the mentality that we live in. I still charge things knowing that I cannot afford them, because that's the consumer culture that has been created. It's an addiction. I talked about this last week. We are addicted to the new. So if what you want is to succeed, don't turn your attention to equality of outcome, because nobody wins in that scenario. Everybody loses. Instead, get yourself out of your victim mentality, whatever it might be that's causing it, and put yourself in a position to succeed, to work hard, to do better, so that you can have those things that you think make life worth living. And along the way, you might just find what actually makes life worth living.